and good Chodesh. We are on the top of Kuf Yud Gimel Amud Aleph 113a, so the page here, second line. So before we begin, I just want to comment on yesterday's Gemara, two things. Number one, we spoke yesterday about the demons roaming at night, and the two stories. First, Rabbi Levi who banned them, but then allowed them to roam free on Tuesday night and Friday night. And then Abaye, who banned them completely, but you still bump into them when they come, when you come. So again, Rabbi Levi banned them, but then allowed them to roam free Tuesday night and Friday night. Right. And Abaye banned them completely. Right. And the fact that we see them is because they're coming to retrieve their horses, right? That was we learned yesterday. So now there's a difference between two stories. In the first story, Rabbi Levi banned them. They begged, please let us stay. And he says, okay, you have Tuesday night and Friday night. In Abaye's story, they don't beg. They're banned, but then they still come around to retrieve their horses. And the halacha also says that we shouldn't go out on Tuesday night and Friday night, which seems to only substantiate the first story of Rabbi Levi. So a little bit funny. So I was thinking about that, and I think the reason why they begged Rabbi Chanina ben Dosa is because Rabbi Chanina ben Dosa's ban must have been absolute. Completely absolute. So they begged, we need to have some time. Whereas Abaye's ban wasn't absolute because they can still retrieve their horses. Which means, combining the two stories, only on Tuesday and Friday night would they be retrieving their horses. And thus the halacha still remains that Tuesday and Friday night is a problem. Meaning after the story of Rabbi Chanina ben Dosa, we have no indication that they were coming to retrieve their horses on other nights of the week. Follow up my point?
The real horses or
the spiritual horses, whatever that means.
In other words,
Abaye's ban couldn't have been as absolute as Rabbi Chanina ben Dosa's.
So he opened up,
which means
the ability for them to retrieve horses.
No. He banned them from the city. But when was he banning them? For which days?
Tuesday and Friday.
Only Tuesday and Abaye. Only Tuesday and Friday because they're already banned before for the rest of the time. But then after the Abaye story, they're still retrieving horses. On which nights? On Tuesday and Friday, which means the other nights they're not running to get their horses, which means Chanina ben Dosa's ban was complete and absolute, not even to retrieve horses, which is why they begged, hey, please give us something. That's what we must conclude. Number one. Number two, Rabbi Gimel emailed me, we were discussing about why Tuesday and Friday night. So we suggested Friday night because people aren't going out, it's Shabbos. And he was making the point, a good point, that Tuesday night is also not a traveling night because people would travel into the cities for Monday and Thursday for the court, for Torah reading, for court, and for market day. So Sunday and Monday night, they'd be traveling home, but Tuesday night, they'd already be back home. And then Wednesday, they could be on the way back to the city. So Tuesday night would be a non-traveling night, farthest from both Monday and Thursday. Good point.
It's better to ban them. Did they ban them because they were a nuisance or
because they were causing trouble, they were causing damage, they were harming people, right? They were dangerous.
Why did he even give them Tuesday and Friday?
Can't answer that question.
They were dangerous. I mean, Friday.
They were begging him, so he said, okay, Tuesday, Friday. I don't know why he felt compelled to give them anything. I don't know, that's a good question, why he felt compelled to give them anything. I can't answer that question. Okay, so that's as far as that goes.
So why did it say that we were on Friday night, we have angels?
I spoke about that yesterday, it's unrelated. The fact that you have angels coming home with you to bless you is unrelated to the fact that there also happens to be demons roaming the street. Unrelated. Okay. These angels aren't accompanying you, these demons. They're just, they roam the streets. Yeah, okay, just a comment on yesterday's Gemara, some thoughts. Okay, let's go forward. Sorry?
Look at that.
Second line. We have now a list of instructions that Rav gave. Rav, the great Rav, known simply as Rav, Rabbi, who's of the second generation of the Gemara's era. So the first scholars of Babylonia, of the Gemara, of the Amoraim. So some of the advice is going to be to his students.
I'm sorry, who?
Rav.
Okay.
Some are going to be to his students, and some are going to be to his children. And different pieces of advice to different children, as we shall see. So second line. V'omer Rav leRav As. Kuf Yud Gimel Amud Aleph 113a. Omer Rav leRav As. Rav instructed his student Rav Asi. Number one, like Todd B'Masa, don't live in a town, the like son of Beisusa, where horses do not neigh, v'loy novach b'kalba, and dogs do not bark. Because, as Rashbam explains, they provide security for the town. Thieves come into town, the first ones to see them are the horses and the dogs, and they neigh and they bark, and they send warning to the city, wake up, there's invaders. So if there's a city that doesn't have horses neighing and dogs barking, don't live there. Number two, Ba'al Tadir, don't dwell, Be'ir in a city, Deresh Masa, where the head of the city, the mayor, Asya is a doctor. If the mayor is a doctor, don't live in that city because he's busy with healing people, doesn't have time to think and consider management of the city. It's kind of similar to what we had before once about not living in a place where the mayor and the leaders of the city are active Talmidei Chachamim, right? Because if they're scholars and they're living in a world like academia, they're not living within the people, they're not occupied with what's going on and what do we have, because most of the city work is administrative, logistical. And if you're living in a world of academia, you can't be involved in the logistics of operating a city, right? So a similar thing here. Doctor also is busy with work of the mind, understanding the body and busy healing people, and therefore not so invested in the logistics of taking care of the city. And therefore, if the mayor is a doctor, don't live in that city. A piece of advice number two, Rav gives to his student Rav Asi. Number three.
I guess, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I guess you could expand that to anything where if whatever profession the mayor is doing, if it's in opposition to his duties as mayor.
Specifically in terms of executive function.
Yeah. Well,
Right? In other words, the mayor is allowed to have a job.
Yeah.
It's not like don't live in a city where the mayor has no job but being mayor. He can have a job. Right? But as long as his job is executive function rather than exactly
to enforce.
So if he runs a construction company, he's not detached from the operations of the city. He's very much attached to it, even in his work. But the doctor is, the state of the person's life is irrelevant to the doctor. What's relevant is his body. It's irrelevant to whether his street is, whether the road has potholes or the snow is being removed on time, right?
In those days, doctors had, there was much more sicknesses.
Certainly,
So
yeah.
they were busy. They were busy from day to night.
Right. They were very busy. Okay, advice number three, like to not save tarti, don't marry two women. Right, this is before the notion of the ban that began in Ashkenaz a couple of centuries later by Rabbi Gershom. We learned about him on Shabbos afternoon once. So he put a ban on at least Ashkenazim from marrying two women. And today it's become normal. Nobody marries two women. But it used to be not so long ago that people did marry two women.
Or more.
Or more. Just more than one. So he says, don't marry two. Because if you marry two, they're just going to conspire against you. They're just going to conspire against you. So therefore he says, Ina safta tarti, but if you decide to marry two, nasav tflas, marry a third.
Yeah.
So if the two of them gang up against you, at least you have one wife on your side.
About the joke. So you shouldn't marry two, you should marry three.
Sorry?
You have a base. You shouldn't marry two, you should marry three, so you have a base.
Well, at least you have one on your side.
Yeah.
All three ganging up on you is less likely than two.
Right.
Right.
And
Two will gang up on you.
Two witnesses against two is a law.
Yeah, I don't know there's no legal issue here, but in terms of the what's the word, peace in the home, I guess shalom bayis, you might have at least one wife on your side. Right? There's nothing more lonely than being alone when someone else is right there. So if you have two women right there and they both don't like you, you're in trouble. So at least get a third one, so at least one likes you.
I have my hands full with one.
Yeah.
Sickness, this, that.
Yeah. So there's a number of places where the Gemara indicates it's not a smart idea to marry more than one woman. The Gemara says elsewhere, unless you can afford it, then you have to be able to give each of them a week of time, like maximum 4 or whatever. There's different places the Gemara gives different advice about how many women to marry. Stay with one. Okay. Now, okay, so that was the end of the advice Rav gave to Rav Asi. We're going to get more advice that Rav gives to his students / sons, and it'll be interesting to see why he gives each one that particular piece of advice. Like why Ravasi is telling him two pieces of advice about where to live, and one about how many women to marry. My guess, complete conjecture made up. Ravasi being Rav's student, and let's just imagine that Ravasi is now graduated from Rav's yeshiva, and he's looking now for a position as rabbi in some city. So he's moving away. So Rav is giving him advice about what kind of cities to look for. He's not, if he's with them on a day-to-day basis, he would know if he's meeting another woman to marry or not marry. He's moving away. He's giving him this kind of big, grand advice.
His advice is good.
Sorry?
So far, his
all advice is good. I'm just suggesting why Ravasi is getting this piece of advice. It's completely made up in my head, but maybe.
Yeah.
Okay, further. Amalei Rav le Rav Kana. Rav tells Rav Kana. Other types of advice completely.
Another student of Rav?
Another student. Rav now telling another student called Rav Kana. Another set of advice completely. And I imagine it's because of where Rav Kana stands in life. And you'll see in a second. Because all the groups of advice can be like combined into like one overall theme. Okay, so here's Rav's advice to Rav Kana. Hafach ben nevelusa, turn over a carcass, dead animal, but like tipith b'mili, but don't turn over your words. You say something, stick to it. And if it means you got to turn over a carcass, metaphorically or literally, then do so. But don't go back on your word. Right?
Yeah.
Or Rashi says it, like a skin a hide, rather than no. That'll be the next thing. Sorry, that'll be the next thing. Sorry. Turn over a carcass rather than turn over your word. Okay.
I guess it's presumably not so easy to turn over a carcass.
It's also not respectable. It's like demeaning. It's not a lofty kind of thing. Lower yourself to the point where you got to turn over a carcass rather than turn over your words. Keep the dignity of your word intact.
Yeah.
Rather than the image of Kana doesn't turn over carcasses.
Right.
Yeah. And I'm saying this, as you'll see from the next piece of advice, which is Shoit Nivelusa, take a job of skinning hide, Bishuka in the market. So be a butcher in the market, right? Today butchers are behind their closed doors. But in the old days, you had your table, you had your hide hanging right there, and you were doing all that work in public. So strip hide in public, Bishukal agra, and get paid for it, an honest wage. V'loy teman, don't say Kana, no, I am Kana, I'm a kohen. Or maybe he means my name is Kana. Maybe his name was Kana because he was a kohen, right? I'm a kohen, the Gavra Rabbana, and I'm a person of stature. The Sanibe Milsa, and this stuff is despised to me. Right? I don't no. The integrity of an honest wage work. And if the only honest work available is to strip hide in public, do that. See, it's a different kind of advice that he's giving to Ravasi. Ravasi is talking about where to live. To Rav Kana, he's telling him how to conduct business. So presumably Rav Kana wasn't moving out of town after graduating. He was staying locally and getting a job. So Rav is giving him advice in that regard. Number one, stick to your word. And if it means you got to turn over a carcass, so be it. Stick to your word. Number two, if the only available job is strip hide, then strip hide. And take an honest wage. Don't go and say it's below my dignity. It's an honest wage. There's nothing wrong with that. Right? Yeah? Which it could be, if you want to stretch our imagination, that maybe Rav Kana did get a job or he was offered a job as a butcher's apprentice or something like that. And maybe he told him that I'm going to do it. But then he was feeling bad about it, went to Rav and said, I don't know, I don't want to take this job. It's below my dignity. Which Rav says, turn over hide, but don't turn over your word. You said you're going to do it.
You're blending the two.
I'm blending the two. And therefore he says, it's a good honest wage. Don't say it's below your dignity. It's a good honest wage. Kind of like if we're using our imagination and Ravasi is moving out of town, so Rav is giving him advice as he's moving out of town. Rav Kana is taking a job, and Rav is giving him advice. Is he taking a job? This is complete conjecture made up, but I'm just putting it out there because why not? Let's stretch our imagination. Continuing, some more advice from Rav to Rav Kana, also related to integrity of business and the value of earned money. He says, Salka Igra, you go up to the rooftop, you're traveling, but you're not going so far. Sheirusach Bahadach, make sure you have your food with you. Always travel with food.
If it's your own rooftop.
I don't think it means literally to a rooftop. I think it means you're going anywhere. Don't rely. You get there.
Right.
Bring some food with you. Right? Where's the Rashbam that I saw? Yeah, when you travel, even if you're going to a close place, it's just like up to the roof. Take some food with you. Make sure you have your Make sure you have your provisions.
On the MTC breakfast.
But don't rely on finding some place to go, kosher, not kosher. Bring food with you. Make sure you're prepared as you travel. And here comes next advice, which is Meya Kri, I think, the Masa Bezuza. If 100 pumpkins cost you 1 zuz, which means food is very cheap in the town locally. Sorry?
No, it's curry.
Curry. 100 pumpkins, I think it's pumpkins, are for 1 zuz, so food is very cheap.
Right.
1 zuz for 100 pumpkins.
Sure.
Tuti kenafech ninu, but bring your provisions in your literally under your coat, under your waistcoat. I was telling him, first of all, even though it's so cheap, still make sure you have with you. And also another way of thinking about this is, I saw this commentary somewhere, is treat your food with dignity. Oh, it's so cheap, big deal, throw it out. No, carry it with you properly inside your knapsack, under your waistcoat, whatever the colloquial equivalent in those days, right? Which is again, I guess, an expression of like the dignity of the value of. It's all in the same context. It seems to me, self-reliance, dignity. There's a dignity in having a job. You're getting wealthy, and it's easy to buy food. No, treat your food properly. Take it with you when you go. Right? So you can see how the advice to Rav Asi is different than the advice to Rav Kana. The advice to Rav Kana is very localized, and in terms of like how he lives with his job and with his food, whereas the advice to Rav Asi was about moving out and getting married, which is like much grander sort of things. Which is why I'm just guessing, complete conjecture, that Rav Asi's moving to another city, and therefore Rav's giving him advice on the grander scale, and Rav Kana staying local, looking at a job, and therefore Rav is giving him advice that's more localized, perhaps. Okay, now advice that Rav gives to his son. Do you have some more time? What time is it?
Just about 9 o'clock.
I have till 3 o'clock.
Sorry?
I have till 3 o'clock.
Can we stop here? We have to run? Okay. We have 2 more sets of advice. One for 2 of Rav's children. One is Chia and one is Evu. Chia, of course, is Rab Chia, that we see all over the Gemara, a scholar. Evu is a son, as we'll see soon. Rav tells him, look, I tried very hard to teach you Torah. It's not working. I'm going to help you in business. And he gives him business advice. Now, what's interesting is that Rav begins his advice to Evu, the other son, by saying, look, I tried very hard to teach you Torah. It didn't click, so I'm going to teach you advice in business. With Rav Chia, the advice he gives him isn't necessarily related to learning, right?
Oh, that's interesting, yeah.
But it's not, right? It's not necessarily related to learning. But as we'll see, it's related to dignity and respect of others, which is kind of like,
maybe don't be inflated because you're
exactly.
scholar.
You're a big scholar. You have to remember to be have humility and a proper self, dignity, and interaction with others, as we'll see. Again, I'm stretching my imagination here, but okay. Rav told his son Chia, Loi tishti samei, don't get into the habit of taking too much medicine, too much drugs. You get addicted to it, your body gets used to it, you start eating more and more, it drains your pockets, and you become too attached and reliant on it. So don't get into the habit of taking too much medicine. Number
Did he
two,
mean medicine or did he mean?
medicine. Some literally means drugs, but it means medicine, at least as Rashbam explains it. Okay,
Might be bad advice too.
sorry?
That might be bad advice too.
What?
There's certain medication you've got to take for life.
Okay, you have to,
Yeah.
As we'll see in a second, if you have to, you have to. But don't make a habit out of it. You know, like people take Tylenol every single time they have a headache, and then all of a sudden Tylenol stops working. You have to take 4 or 5 Tylenols till it kicks in, right? Just telling you. Okay. Number 2, Veloy Tishvar, is that how you pronounce it? Nigra. Don't take big steps, big strides. It's an arrogant thing, taking big strides. Walk with humility. Or another interpretation, as Rashbam tells us, is Nigra means like a puddle of water. People would like jump over it, to shorten their path. Rav tells Rabbi, don't do that. First of all, it's dangerous, you might jump in. But maybe in the context of what we're saying in terms of self-dignity, it's not becoming to for Chia, a scholar, again, this is my imagination, for Chia, a scholar, to be jumping and taking these big strides in an arrogant sort of fashion. Take a step, walk slowly with dignity. Okay. Number 3, like ta'akar kaka, is that how you pronounce the words?
Yeah.
Don't yank out a tooth unless there's no other option to heal it. Don't rush to just yank your tooth out. So the way to heal it, heal it. Okay. Veloy tekane be chiva. Chiva, you pronounce it. Don't provoke a snake. You're trying to kill it to get rid of it out of your house, so you're like getting into it with it. Don't do that. First of all, it might hurt you. It's also unbecoming. It's not the way you're supposed to act. And finally, like tekane be arama. Don't provoke a non-Jew. Yeah, so this is why I think that all of this is related to personal character, personal development, right? Not to get reliant on medicine, not to take big strides, to take care of your health. Don't just, just yank your tooth out. And if you can heal, engage with animals and people without provocation. Don't provoke the snake and don't provoke the non-Jew. They're all related to self-development. Whereas, as we'll see on Monday, the advice that Rav gives to his other son, Evu, is going to be all strictly business related. And that's why it begins by saying, look, I tried to teach you Torah, not working, I'm going to teach you business. Give you some advice in business. Whereas Rav Chia, there's no such introduction. Even though none of the advice is directly related to Torah learning, but he doesn't introduce by saying, well, look, I'm not teaching you, so I'm teaching you advice for life. No, just giving him advice for life. In the context of you being a scholar, all of this is important. Taking care of yourself,
Is this the only?
behaving with dignity, engaging with animals and other humans in a dignified manner.
So apparently, the other son, the unlearned son, is probably not mentioned much in Gemara.
Throughout, not as much as Archia, certainly.
Right.
Yeah, but he mentioned here, Evu.
Yeah.
Okay, so that we'll get to, God willing, on Monday. A wonderful day, a good Chodesh, and Marbim B'Simcha. We have 60 days of Simcha, Baruch Hashem. Yeah, and the expression Marbim B'Simcha, we increase in joy, means you continuously increase. So if we have 60 days of increased joy, by the time we get to Purim, we should be really happy.
Yeah.
Have a wonderful day, and good Chodesh, good Ner Shabbos.